Let's compare streaming quality as a function of bit rates between Apple iTunes, Netflix, Movies Anywhere, and Amazon Prime Video. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Sony movie Uncharted on 4 different streaming services: Apple, Amazon, Movies Anywhere, and Netflix, and take a look at what kind of streaming bit rates we get both for the video and the audio. Now, I'm using my Apple TV 4K, the latest model, for all of these services, and we're streaming them into the LG 83-inch G2 OLED. Look for other videos on the channel making other comparisons. Particularly, I'm going to do a Disney-based movie that would include Disney Plus against these other services, and a Warner Brothers-based movie that would also then compare HBO Max against these other services. But to get Netflix, we had to go for a Sony movie, and I wanted to make sure that we had a movie that was available on Netflix in 4K HDR Dolby Vision, and so Uncharted seemed to be a recent reasonable pick for that. I do have the Apple Developer Debug menu options enabled on my Apple TV, allowing us to see the overlay, giving us all the details about what's the streaming quality, resolution, bit rates, and everything. First one out of the gate, let's take a look at iTunes, Uncharted. All right, so if we take a look at iTunes here, I'm kind of jumping to the similar part of the movie through all the different services. This is early in, just a few minutes in, right at the opening sequence of the film. We're basically looking at a 4K movie, scope aspect ratio, of course, 24 frames per second, 23.98, QHD1 codec, which is Dolby Vision 5, audio codec QEC3 with 16 channels. That indicates that it's sending us Dolby Atmos. And if we take a look at the bit rates here, 770K for audio. That's pretty normal on iTunes and a lot of apps actually overall when they're streaming Dolby Atmos at 770. Peak bit rate at 24.58. That's not super indicative of the quality that iTunes often gives out in various types of content. And again, I would call it pretty low. So indicated bit rate, video peak 24, average 15.35. A little disappointed in that one, to be honest. Let's take a look at another app. All right, here we are in Netflix. Pretty similar stuff, different codec, indicated as CDH1, but we still have a 4K Dolby Vision movie here. Interestingly, it's still scope, but Netflix actually streams the black bars, whereas Apple iTunes doesn't stream the black bars. In any case, we have a indicated peak bit rate in the video here, a 24.64, fairly equitable to iTunes. Average bit rate 16.64. Real close, pretty much a wash. I'm actually kind of surprised though that Netflix holds up as well. I would have expected a little bit less out of Netflix, quite honestly. But here's where things drop off a little bit. There's no Dolby Atmos in the Netflix stream of this movie. We're looking at EC3 codec. That's basically 6 channels, Dolby Digital 5.1. We are getting 640K Dolby Digital though. For Dolby Digital streaming, that's reasonable. That's about as high as the Dolby Digital bit rates themselves actually get. But in any case, Netflix, iTunes, pretty equitable here. Let's go to the next one. All right, here we go. Third service, a little bit further in the movie. I'll explain why in a second. But this is Movies Anywhere. This was an interesting one. I actually had to sit here and fiddle around for a while until Movies Anywhere would actually kick up to delivering a full 4K stream. Took probably on the order of 10 or 15 seconds. It started to move up, it would drop back. So as much as people talk about the lack of reliability in streaming to deliver and lock on to a high fidelity stream, this definitely evidenced that. I don't really see that a lot. Granted, I don't generally use the Movies Anywhere app, quite honestly, but I don't notice that or tend to notice that from other general streaming that I do. I've got a very fast internet connection here, big data cap, all of that, and it usually never fails me. I don't know if this is an issue with the Movies Anywhere service itself, but in any case, after about 10-15 seconds of letting the stream kind of lock in, popping back a little bit, I finally did get locked in to getting served the full 4K. So in this case, interesting differences here as well. We have a QHVC codec. This is HDR10. Movies Anywhere isn't delivering Dolby Vision for this movie. We're stuck still here again with EC3 at an abysmal audio rate of 256 kilobit. That's horrendous. At least Netflix was doing 640K. 256. Come on, Movies Anywhere. And amazingly enough, this is the highest video bitrate that we've seen so far amongst these three apps. Peak bitrate 31.96, soundly higher than iTunes and Netflix, and an average rate of 24 megabit per second. This is where I would have expected iTunes to be, and where generally when I do these types of investigations and comparisons, I see iTunes up at these types of numbers oftentimes or better. So there you go, Movies Anywhere really killing it on the video bitrate side after spending a little while to lock in, but failing, utterly failing on the audio side. iTunes so far, the only one of these apps fit to deliver this movie in actual Dolby Atmos. Let's take a look at the last one. All right, last one for this comparison, Uncharted, streaming on Amazon Prime, supposed to be in 4K HDR. I can't actually get the HDR to lock on. We're getting QHVC. We are getting 4K. It's indicating SDR. I got tired of fiddling with it, so we're just going to go with this, basically. We have codec Q EC3, 192 kilobits, the worst audio that we've seen so far. Didn't indicate the number of channels, but this is basically, I believe, 5.1. We do have a peak video bitrate of 17.83, average 15. So they didn't really bump the encoder up much at all for the scenes that I guess needed it the most. We are not streaming the black bars, so the natural size of the thing coming down, 3840 by 1600. Apple, I think, was 1580. So you can see how these different services, they all do their own preparations, they all do their own encodings, they take what the studios give them, the masters, whatever, and they make the decisions about kind of what level of quality, what level of encoding, how they want to run all those processes in order to get what you want to get. So there's no real hard outlier here. Movies Anywhere, I guess, taking the lead from a video perspective. Apple by far taking the lead from an audio perspective. If I had to put the two of those things together and watch this movie in my dedicated theater room on streaming, I probably would still go ahead and opt for the iTunes, take a little bit less of the video bitrate for the better quality audio and the natural Atmos encode. But altogether, all of these, not a great showing for streaming. Physical media Blu-ray or a Kaleidescape version of this movie is just going to beat the pants off of any of these streams. The Kaleidescape version, of course, providing a lossless Dolby Atmos soundtrack and clocking in at about 61 gigabytes on its download, significantly higher bitrate than any of these services are serving up. And according to Blu-ray.com, the physical media release of this on a BD66, so fairly equitable to the Kaleidescape download, but also, of course, delivering that lossless Atmos audio soundtrack. So what do you think? Leave some feedback in the comments. How do you feel about streaming videos? How do you feel about the real numbers of streaming bitrate, indicated values? Sound off. Let me know what you think. Look for some more of these comparisons, and I will choose some other movies in future videos that allow me to bring in other services like Disney Plus, like HBO Max. Thanks so much for watching. Please do all the regular YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Check out the description below for some ways to support the channel. Super thanks, merch, Amazon affiliate link, and all of that. Thanks so much for watching, and come on back for more home theater discussion and fun.